the great benefit of widening our perspective so we can use our most valuable human energy in the best possible way. And one of the stories in the Srimad Bhagavatam is of Gajendra, who's presented as being self-reliant. He has so much power in the body of an elephant that, as described in the story of Gajendra, everyone stands out of his way and gives him respect because he has this physical power and prowess. But then he comes into an existential crisis where he realizes that even he, with his sense of material strength, cannot withstand the power of destiny, which comes to him in the form of a crocodile. And he realizes at a certain point that he can't win. And the Bhagavatam gives us this powerful preemptive way of seeing the plight of Gajendra and then relating it to our own situation. The greatest asset we have as very fragile human beings, albeit very insightful and intelligent, we have this power of intelligence, is to develop spiritual strength while we have the opportunity. That's what the human body is meant for. And paradoxically, there's a way in which the beginning of developing spiritual strength is in admitting our own weakness, in that we can't rely on our physical strength, our mental prowess, or any of our surrounding assets, family members, the government, our money, and so forth. That's something that Shukadeva Goswami says, Deha patrakala tradisha atmasaini sasatsapi tesham pramatanitanam pashana pina pashati, that we should know better, that any of the so-called supporting features of our life cannot protect us. Only Krishna can. So in chanting japa, we can develop spiritual strength. Partly goes to the mood of chanting, which is in admitting that I'm helpless. Again, the beginning of developing spiritual strength is admitting our frailty and our helplessness and taking shelter of Krishna, because ultimately, as Gajendra showed, it's the only support that we have ultimately is Krishna. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommended that to chant Hare Krishna, we should be very, very humble. Humbleness is not simply an intellectual exercise, but it's a recognition of our dependence on Krishna. And if we chant with that mood, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, then we'll feel inclined to go on chanting, because we'll realize that there's safety in taking shelter of Krishna. Whereas if we take shelter of anything else, then there's always an underlying sense of fear that I know ultimately this won't support me. So while we have the chants, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Prayana kale manasa chalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva bruvor madhye pranam avesha samyak satam param purusham upaiti divyam. Those who are great souls, they take the opportunity in human life, prayana kale, before they leave their body, to develop this spiritual strength. So whatever one's doing, one should make this the priority, to develop this spiritual strength by chanting the Mahamantra oneself, depending and honing one's own sense of dependence on Krishna. So we could start with the Bhuta Shuddhi, and then we'll make a quick sankalpa. If you want to say together, that's not it. You go back to the Bhuta Shuddhi. One more back. I am by nature the eternal servant of Krishna, but by misfortune, due to being inimical towards him since time immemorial, I've been wandering within the cycle of birth and death in the material world, being burnt by the threefold miseries. Now, as a result of some unimaginable good fortune, by the mercy of my spiritual master, I know that I am an infinitesimal living being, completely apart from the gross and subtle body. Now, by the order of my spiritual master, I have obtained the good fortune of serving this lotus feet, as well as the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan. Naham bipro nacha narapatir napi vaisho nashudro, naham bharni nacha grihapatir no vanasto yatirava, kintu prodyan nikila paramananda purnam ritabdir, gopi bharti parakamlayor das anudasaha. I'm not a Brahmana, I'm not a Kshatriya, I'm not a Vaishya or Shudra, nor am I a Brahmachari, a householder, a Vanaprastha or sannyasi. I identify myself only as a servant of the servant of the servant of the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna, the maintainer of the gopis. He is like an ocean of nectar, and he is the cause of universal transcendental bliss. He's always existed. In other words, our pronouns are das anudasaha. And finally, the spiritual sankalpa means to decide oneself. This is the power of being an individual soul. We can use our free will and offer ourselves to Krishna. So just take a moment to offer your chanting to Krishna with a very precise intention of why you're chanting. So go within yourself right now and decide why you're chanting, and then we'll start. And make a declaration. Krishna, this is why I'm chanting. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna. Seventh inning check-in for our last stint. And Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura had talked about the concept of Darśana. Sometimes it's taken to mean I went to see the Lord. But he said, that's not the meaning of Darśana. Darśana means to act in such a way that Krishna will want to see you. Even going to the temple, oftentimes he didn't wear his glasses. And he said, I didn't come here to use these eyeballs to try to see Krishna, but I came here to be seen by Krishna. And I might approach chanting the holy names in a way in which I'm thinking, why aren't you giving me bliss? Because oftentimes people say, well, I'm chanting, but I'm not getting any taste. Because that's what I want. Krishna, give me some taste. But then there's another way of thinking. I'm not going there for taste or for any of my own purposes, even liberation, by chanting the holy name, even have a sense of freedom from my anxieties. But I'm going there because I'm a servant of Krishna. Like Prahlad Maharaj said, when Nrsingadev offered him a benediction, he said, I don't want anything. I just am your servant, that's all. No other consideration. So our approach to the holy name is also very important. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentioned, das anudasaha, no other reason except I'm your servant. Realizations from today's monologue or from your own chanting. We'll just take a few and then finish. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my obeisances. I was thinking about the Gajendra that you were talking initially. I was thinking that Gajendra was in a helpless situation and all his so-called friends, they couldn't help him. Even the so-called demigods, they did not come to give him a hand. It was only Lord Krishna that remembered his prayers because of his strong sadhana he had many, many years ago, that Krishna reciprocated with him. And with that, I was remembering that Priya Kishori, when her mom passed away, she was telling in her tribute to her mom that her mom knew a lot of shlokas and she had a lot of memorized things. But in the last minute of her life, she could not remember any of those. Priya Kishori kept telling her, you know this one, why don't you chant this one? But the only thing that she remembered was the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And she was telling that the Mahamantra didn't leave her till the last minute. And I think for us also, for me especially, we don't have such a strong sadhana, and at least we can depend on the Mahamantra, that the Mahamantra can take us and Krishna will rescue us. And that dependence is very important. With that mood, I was trying to chant today.
Thank you very much, Bhavani Bhakti. Mukaravind.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you for sharing that meaning of darshan and from Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura Maharaj. And when we were recently in Govardhan, we happened to meet His Grace Prem Vilas Prabhu, and then he was mentioning parikrama. We just asked a question why we do parikrama of anything, like we were doing parikrama of Govardhan, and he mentioned that we do parikrama because we want to keep that object as a center of our life. So when we do parikrama, we are extra, like there is centripetal and centrifugal. We're telling centripetally, we are saying that is a center of my life. Whatever centrifugal forces come in my life, it doesn't matter, but centripetal is that object in my life. And today morning I was listening one of your another japa talk, and you are saying that Prabhupada asked just one thing in our life is to chant 16 rounds. So we had to organize our life around that instruction, and it takes a really very conscious effort to organize our lives. I was thinking that's like a parikrama, that we are keeping that instruction of Prabhupada in our life, that is my everyday parikrama of that object, that is holy name. So that makes me more conscious that, okay, this is parikrama I'm doing. And as we know in Govardhan, if we don't make our pace and everything calculate, we may not be able to do parikrama every day. So I was thinking that is so important to have that in central of our life. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mukaravind. Two more and we're... Yes.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. I like the point where you said that we have to, the human life is meant for developing spiritual strength, and paradoxically one has to admit one's weaknesses. I remember when I started chanting Hare Krishna, I was newly in North Carolina, I was studying there. So I used to go to devotee gatherings, and somebody asked me, how many rounds are you chanting? And I nonchalantly said I am chanting 16, although I was going up and down in chanting, sometimes 16, sometimes 8, sometimes 4. And I remember the next week I could not chant any rounds. I was so miserable. I was thinking, yes, I need to admit. And when I really prayed to Krishna, only then I could chant. And I actually requested one of the devotees there, Adityanaran Prabhu, to help me out, to be accountable. And that's when I could come back to my eight rounds, actually. Yeah.
Thank you, Kaltakara. Very powerful. One more from this side. Sharing means caring. Yes.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. So I was using that sankalpa, that I recognize Krishna, I recognize that there is no other protection, no my relatives, no job or talent or money that can save me in this world. So I recognize and admit that and just pray that.
How did it make you feel when you made that sankalpa?
It feels much lighter because I don't feel that burden on my shoulders.
That could be a formula. The more we surrender to Krishna, the more we feel lighter and the obstacles are gone.
Yes, that's
Thank you.
helpful.
Thank you everyone for sharing such insightful thoughts about chanting. And let's take time, well, let's not, we're done. Otherwise, we're going to run over time. Dear Śrīla Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Lakshmi Nrsimhadev, if you so desire, please give us a common sense to understand that we're helpless and that we're dependent on your mercy. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part, please say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Kripa Sindhave Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.